You're listening to radio.depaul.edu through the series of tubes that is the Internet.
It's not a big truck. It's a series of tubes.
It's a matter of sight and sound. It's a source of entertainment and information.
Why, oh why didn't I take the blue pill?
Radio.depaul.edu is the home of Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
2 on, 2 out for the Red Sox. There's a drive into left. Back at the track, at the wall, it's gone. Johnny Gomes has hit a 3-run home run and put the Red Sox on top, 4-1.
Welcome into the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. My name is Eli Hershkovich and my co-host Tom Bostwick. It's actually his birthday, so happy birthday to Tom. We'll be saying that on the air, maybe singing happy birthday to Tom when he gets into the studio. And if you would like to sing happy birthday to Tom or call in to talk some sports, you could do so at 773-325-7341. You could also tweet at my account and the show's account as well, at the lineup RDP, and check out our podcasts and my blog on the website www.thelineup.weebly or the lineup radiodepaul.weebly.com, a very important part of the website's link. But you heard the highlight to open up the show, Johnny Gomes with a 3-run shot off the reliever, which was Sean Maness. And of course, the Boston Red Sox went on to go one more run later on the 7th inning. Matt Carpenter singled in Robinson to give the Cardinals their second run of the ball game. But that was all she wrote for the Boston Red Sox, and they went on to win their second game of the series. And a big move by John Farrell in the 8th inning to pitch John Lackey to set up Uehara for the save. And I thought that was very impressive. But a very interesting note before the game was Victorino, of course, being out with the back tightness, and then you bring in Johnny Gomes, and is Gomes going to be in there? Of course, Johnny Gomes loves to swing, get those high pitches, and then what does Maness give him? He gives him that high pitch, and Gomes swings to the fences, and a very great point by Joe Buck, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his. Joe Buck was saying how Gomes is going to be waiting for that pitch because Maness throws around 90 miles an hour, and he doesn't have to be swinging away and letting something go by him. If he was throwing 99, then he would be having to be aware of something, that a pitch that went by him at 99. But he had to wait on that 90 mile an hour pitch, and he got it, and he hit it out of the ballpark at Busch Stadium, and that was a shot out of there to left field, as Joe Buck said. And what a big play for the Boston Red Sox in this series, and what a way to get them right back in the thick of things in the World Series. And again, you look at this Boston Magic in this Soxtober, and that's what they called it here in October when the White Sox won the World Series. I'm sure they're calling it the same thing in the Boston newspapers and all that stuff. But Johnny Gomes, having that beard, and I loved when Mike Napoli was tugging at it because he has a very identical beard. And Johnny Gomes is that Boston inspiration, and that Boston hero, the Boston Magic, continues there in Massachusetts and in St. Louis now as well. And I'm sure this is a night that Cardinals fans wanted to forget. But again, just Johnny Gomes being Johnny Gomes, and he was pounding his chest like no other when he was running around the base pass. And Ken Rosenthal asked David Ortiz after the game, who was more excited, Johnny Gomes or yourself? And David Ortiz said me, but I'm sure Johnny Gomes was that much more pumped. He's a very exciting athlete to watch. Maybe he can get a little bit too into the sport sometimes, but all these athletes can, and that's who Johnny Gomes is. He's a very over-the-top player, but that's what athletes love, and that's what you got to have in your clubhouse sometimes, a guy who can be over the top and do things for your club that other guys don't. And obviously that's what Johnny Gomes brought. He brought the beard for the Soxtober, and now all these guys are rocking it. Even Jacoby Ellsbury, who isn't having the best World Series, batting 188, but he's got somewhat of a slight beard. Dustin Pedroia batting 267, going 1 for 4 yesterday, and Big Papi And people were talking about it going into the World Series, and we were talking about it last week before the World Series started between these Red Sox and these Cardinals. Will Big Papi be starting over McNapoli if he continues to have a sluggish, as in a poor, not in slugging in baseball terms? Would he start at first base in St. Louis without having a DH, as he's been playing DH for basically his whole career? And we were saying that I don't think so. I think Napoli will get one start, and he might be starting today at catcher, as David Ross hasn't been hitting too well, batting 125. But you look at David Ortiz, the way he's hitting in the World Series, batting 727, obviously the best hitter in the World Series right now, and he's clubbing the baseball, 3 for 3 yesterday, coming up with clutch hits, a 2-run shot in the first game of this series as Boston won that one handily 8-1. And again, you look at this Red Sox team right now, they're playing with that Boston attitude, that Boston spirit, that they're never going to go away. You're going to always keep fighting. You're always going to keep pushing. And again, Clay Buchholz and the last two Boston Red Sox starters, that being Jake Peavy and that being Clay Buchholz. Buchholz went 4 innings yesterday, giving up the 1 run, that being unearned for him, giving up that also 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, 66 pitches. So obviously Farrell didn't feel too comfortable keeping him in the ball game. Dubront also started during the regular season, then went 2 2/3. He was looking like a guy that could end up starting if Buchholz wasn't able to go because of the injury. Breslow didn't even go an inning. He went basically, as you would say, not even a plus, so just plus of an inning. And then also Tazawa went in a third of an inning. Lackey went a whole inning. That was a big time for John Lackey getting out of that jam in the 8th inning. Then Urihara got Craig looking on first base, and he got him to end the ball game on that swipe by Napoli. Nice play, and on the pickoff move by Urihara. And the two most bizarre ways to end a World Series game, if you want to put it that way, by third baseman's interference by Will Middlebrooks, I believe, or if it was not Will Middlebrooks, it was Bogarts in game number 3 to give the Cardinals the win as he was clearly out coming home. I believe that was Alan Craig too. And then Alan Craig did end up playing in a pinch hitting role yesterday as he was hurt. He's batting .444 in the World Series, so obviously playing well. But the injury that happened, he's been out for a while, and he obviously is coming back in these World Series, but he got a little banged up on that play, on the collision at home plate, even though he was out. The third baseman's interference ended up giving him the game-winning run, and the Red Sox ended up losing that play. Again, a bizarre play. And then yesterday, the pickoff play to end that game by Urihara, and just a very alert play. And again, people were talking about it. I saw it on Twitter going into the 9th inning, saying, should John Farrell leave John Lackey in for the 9th inning to close out the St. Louis Cardinals? And it's the same kind of question that people were talking about with the Detroit Tigers when the Tigers were up on the Oakland A's in game number 5, I believe it was. And people were talking about, should the Tigers leave in Max Scherzer to close out that game? They brought in Benoit, and the Red Sox brought in their closer as well. Obviously, the Red Sox closer has been much more dominant, that being Urihara, having already 6 saves. I believe 6 saves, including last night's game in the playoffs. And what does he do? He shuts down the St. Louis Cardinals lineup, and what more could you expect? And of course, to end it, and yet again, as I mentioned, another bizarre way. But you look at the way this Cardinals team is hitting right now, as we touched on the Red Sox hitters. Carpenter, who again struggled in the NLDS, batting .278. Beltran batting .300. Halladay batting .294. Matt Adams, who's batting .176, and Ken Rosenthal just tweeted this a couple minutes ago, saying that Alan Craig is getting looks at first base. He's taking ground balls to first base, so maybe Craig might get the start there. David Freese, a World Series hero, or at least in game number 6 against the Texas Rangers in 2011, batting .083. Not the kind of start you want to have in games 1 through 4 for these Cardinals. John Jay batting .154. Yachty batting .375. What more could you expect from Yachty or Molina? Again, that was another good point from Joe Buck. He was standing in the batter's hole yesterday, waiting to go to the dish, and then Alan Craig gets picked off, and he's sitting there. What's going on? What just happened? I thought I was going to get a chance to bat, but unfortunately for Yachty, he didn't get his chance to, for the Cardinals, hopefully tie up that game or get a chance to hit a 2-run shot off Urihara. And again, the way Urihara has been pitching all these playoffs, the likelihood of that happening is very slim, but we've seen it in the playoffs. Anything can happen. And, of course, that being said, David Ortiz said anything could happen to Benoit when he hit that slam. And I know Tigers fans don't really want to hear that anymore. Also with Victorino and with Iglesias having the error there. But anything could happen in the playoffs. But Iwahara made sure that anything couldn't happen last night when he picked off Allen Craig. And the Red Sox tied up this series. And now they play Game 5 tonight. And Adam Wainwright trying to get back on the bump and hopefully pitch a much better game than he did for the Cardinals over in St. Louis, not in Boston. He gets that home field back. And John Lester, who pitched dominant, not giving up a run against the St. Louis Cardinals. Beltran hit a shutout in the 9th against the Red Sox in Game 1. So hopefully for the Cardinals, they can get some hits off John Lester. And hopefully Lester, for the Red Sox, shuts the Cardinals down tonight. We'll be talking some more World Series next. Also, we'll dive into the Packers and Bears. Packers doing their thing last night against the Minnesota Vikings. Will continue against this vaunting, or I'm just kidding, not this vaunting Bears defense, this disgusting Bears defense next weekend. We'll talk about that next. We're going to take a quick music break right here. Young the Giant just came out with a new single, and I can't wait to play that for you guys. I'm going to try to look it up on Spotify for the next break. But while we have some time here, Scott Powers will be rejoining us in a little bit. I believe that'll be at 4 o'clock. So we're excited to talk to him. We'll be talking some Blackhawks as well as some DePaul Blue Demons basketball as DePaul gets underway tomorrow night at McGrath. Head out to that game if you don't want to head out. We'll be over on Radio DePaul Sports. I'll be on the call with Dan Pulowski for some men's basketball. But going back to the Chicago Blackhawks, their theme song of last year was Some Nights. So here's Some Nights by Fun. You are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
Do you mean like between us personally, or?
Yeah.
Oh.
Some nights I wish that my lips could build a castle. Some nights I wish they just fall off. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. Oh Lord, I'm still not sure what I stand for. Oh, what do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore. Stops my bones from wandering just who I am, who I am, oh, who am I? Well, some nights I wish that this all would end, 'cause I could use some friends for a change. And some nights I'm scared you'll forget me again, but some nights I always win. For this, I miss my mom and dad for this. No, when I see stars, when I see stars, that's all they are. When I hear songs, they sound like a swan. So come on, well, brothers and guys, daddy's on 5 minutes in and I'm bored again. 10 years of this, I'm not sure. And the comments she call off. And then I look into my nephew's eyes. Man, you wouldn't believe the most amazing things they can come from some terrible lie.
Give it to Lacey. Barrels in. Touchdown, Green Bay. So they take the ball, go 80 yards, 15 plays, 9 runs, 6 passes, and eat up 8 minutes and 10 seconds.
The hammer is right, and I think Aaron Henderson would agree. Had him dead to rights in the hole. That's their best tackler, leading tackler on the team. And he didn't even get close to stopping him. Didn't even break his momentum. Just goes right underneath him.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Maybe the most underrated weapons on this Packers team, even though he's being talked about a lot right now, is Eddie Lacy. And that does not bode well for this Bears defense just because of the way they've been playing against the run. I understand this Bears team has not been too shabby against the run, and the stats show that as well. But Eddie Lacy has been tearing it up on the ground, and this Packers team has been tearing it up on the ground as well. And we'll get into the stats from last night right now. Lacy, 29 carries, 94 yards. And again, the Vikings, if you didn't catch the game, Sunday Night Football, Packers beat the Vikings 44-31. Lacy, 29 carries, 94 yards, a touchdown, 3.2 on the ground. The average, Starks, 7 carries, 57 yards, 1 touchdown. Obviously, that 25-yard touchdown run helped both his stats. Aaron Rodgers, 6 carries, 31 yards as well. So the quarterback can obviously move it too. 42 carries, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns against I'd say a better Vikings run defense than what the Bears have brought to the table this year. And again, that being said, Henry Melton's out for the year. You're also going to have Williams out for the year too, but not Williams, but the 93. I'm blanking on his name. But you're talking about also Lance Briggs being out. The Packers are going to be trying to gut up the running game next week. This being on Monday Night Football, the Packers are going to be trying to prove a point. Bears are 1 game back of the division lead right now. The Lions are 5-2, I believe. So the Packers and Lions are tied for the division, even though the Packers have that 1 game edge because they've won in Green Bay. Pretty nice record though for Detroit. I'm not going to lie. I didn't expect Detroit to be this good and playing this well, even with Reggie Bush. And Detroit's actually 5-3. They played 1 more game than the Green Bay Packers. But we'll get into the Lions a little bit later, and we'll talk about Des Bryant's little explosion and his little actions that he just tried to display on the sidelines. But going back to the Packers, just what they've been bringing on the field with these injuries. And again, Jermichael Finley could be out for the season, and what do? They just sling it around, and you look at the numbers for these Packers receivers. Nelson, of course, doing his thing with that long touchdown, 76-yarder yesterday. 7 catches overall, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gerald Boykin, 5 catches, 89 yards. White, also, who I believe, I don't know if he's playing backup tight end. I know Corliss is as well. Miles White's a wide receiver, actually. 5 catches, 35 yards. Eddie Lacy getting involved in the receiving game as well. 4 catches, 18 yards. Corliss, there you go, the backup tight end. 2 catches, 13 yards. And John Kuhn, the guy for the Packers, that Green Bay fans love to death. Yet I don't understand why he has done too much there in Green Bay. I think they just love to pronounce that ooh so much. And Kuhn, 1 catch, 7 yards, not doing too much on the ground. But he is blocking very well for Lacy. So I guess again, the underrated parts for this Green Bay team, the fullback doing a nice job in front of their rookie tailback, Alabama. But yet again, this Packers team is doing well without the injuries, and we saw in Green Bay when they won the Super Bowl, how did they win? They won when their guys were down in the dust and hurt. And yet again for the Packers, they're winning with their guys down in the dust and hurt. I believe it was at the beginning of that year. I'm trying to think who the running back was to start the season. Now he's a nobody, and I can't think of it at the moment. When Tom gets in there, I'll be sure to ask him. But who stepped up that season? Ryan Grant was the running back. There we go. Ryan Grant was the running back to begin the 2010-2011 campaign. And who stepped up? James Stark stepped up, and he became the tailback during the Super Bowl run for the Green Bay Packers. Just yet again another impressive running back. And now the Packers might have their tailback. And Lacy got hurt. He's had his problems with injuries at Alabama, so hopefully that doesn't stall him out in Green Bay. But right now this Packers team is just playing lights out football after their 1-2 start. And again, people were doubting them after they went on that 1-2 start, but they played 3 very tough football teams. Going back to their schedule here, they played the San Francisco 49ers, they played the Redskins, they won that football game, and as you could see right now, the Redskins are coming back with some urgency, even though they lost to the Broncos, and we'll get into the Broncos next. But you look at this Packers team right now, they lost to the Bengals on the road. Bengals are a very good football team. You look at their record, they're 6-2 and first in the AFC North. So they're finally living up to their standards after their loss to the Bears, which may not be too great of a loss, as we looked at it as the Bears look to be much better in the season than they are right now, at least defensively. But this Packer team just continues to win with the injuries, which is the most impressive part. And this rookie Boykin is stepping up for them big time. And I know Finley's a big wide receiver threat, but Boykin is not too small himself. He's got some size at the wide receiver position. We'll pull up what he could bring to the table for this Packer team right here. Jared Boykin's stats, 6'2", 218 pounds. So from Tennessee, he played at Vatech. I don't know if he played with Pat White or not when Pat White was quarterback at Vatech. If you want to call in, it's 773-325-7341. If you want to talk Packers or talk about Jared Boyd, who was quarterback when Jared Boykin was playing at Vatech, he could do so as well. But this Packer team is just dangerous all over the field, and not only on the offensive side of the football, but on the defensive side of the football. And you look at their defense right now, A.J. Hawk, who is playing big time with a very minimized contract, and also Clay Matthews is out right now with his injury. So Trumon Williams, Morgan Burnett, Devon House, guys like Johnny Jolly's still there. Sean Shields, I believe. Yeah, Sam Shields, the cornerback. He's definitely not, even though he doesn't pick up too many tackles a game, he steps up every single game to shut down the opposing wide receiver. A lot of pass deflections. Not last night against the Minnesota Vikings, but on the season, Sam Shields is definitely a cornerback you don't want to go up against, and that's usually why the stats don't show it. But quarterbacks don't like to throw to Sam Shields that often, and Sam Shields had himself no pass deflections yesterday, but 3 total tackles, 2 solo tackles. A.J. Hawk with 5, Morgan Burnett with 8, and Micah Hyde, who I believe is a rookie cornerback on the season. I'll pull up his complete player card. He was a rookie, yes. Micah Hyde out of Iowa this past season, 6 feet on the dot, 197 pounds. So a decently sized cornerback, but this Packers secondary has a lot of depth. And this Bears wide receiving group with Jeffrey and Bennett, both Bennetts, and Brandon Marshall, they can get across the field. Also with Matt Forte having a nice year through the air. They can definitely stretch it across the field, and hopefully McCowan can play just as well as he did against the Redskins. We'll get into this more when Tom gets here, as I'll hear his opinion, and we'll debate about this. But this Packers secondary is going to be very tough to throw against. And you look at what Christian Ponder did yesterday, a typical Christian Ponder kind of afternoon, 14 for 21, 145 yards. Nothing special. Adrian Peterson, 13 carries, 60 yards. Just yet again for the Vikings, they don't hand the ball off to AP too much. So, again, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll dive into more Packers-Bears next. Then we'll get into the Broncos during next segment as well, as Peyton Manning does his thing. Didn't show up too much through the quarters 1 through 3, but when he needed to, he came back in a big way for the Broncos against the Redskins. But I believe the Young the Giants single is up and ready to go if this works. So Here's Young the Giants' new single, It's About Time. I've been waiting this for 2 years, folks. So hopefully you guys have too. Again, here's It's About Time by Young the Giant. Tom Bostwick, it's his birthday, so happy birthday to Tom. And you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
Right now at O'Hare Hyundai, get free.
A little ad there. Sorry about that. So once this ad goes down, we'll play It's About Time by Young the Giant. Again, here's the official music video. Hopefully you guys get to see this on your laptops. I'm getting to see it in the studio live. So sorry about that ad there. Again, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
What's up, y'all? This is Jeremiah.
What's up? This is Steve-O from Jackass. You're listening to Radio DePaul.
Radio DePaul.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's College Connection.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. And again, we're talking some Packers-Bears here. Again, Tom, I was just getting into this with the Packers. with their football team right now, and again, with the win last night with the 44-31 victory, they're winning with these injuries, and it's incredible. Jarrett Boykin stepping up, 6'2" guy. He's a huge wide receiver. Him and Nelson have some height and size.
Right. Yeah. No. And you saw what Jordy Nelson could do as well. He had an absolute amazing game last night. And you mentioned Boykin. I was actually going against him in fantasy, so I was a little worried though, because Rodgers
only 8 points,
right? But Rodgers can find these receivers and they have huge days. But no, he played really well, and they got that little fast guy. Is it White? Little slot receiver too. He seeing extended action. So Rodgers is gonna make any receiver that much better. It does. You could put the Jaguars receivers out there, and Jaguars actually.
I believe his name is Miles White.
Miles White. Okay.
Yeah. They find guys out of nowhere. Again, the draft class is unbelievable from Green Bay. And I was talking about this earlier with a buddy of mine. You talk about the baseball and with the Cardinals and Red Sox improving their bullpen.
Right.
The Packers do this every year with their wide receiving core with Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, and now look what they have in Jordy Nelson, Jarrett Boykin coming out of nowhere. This guy, they're paying him nothing to do this for the Packers.
Right. And James Jones really came out of nowhere either. I mean, he was really the third, fourth, sometimes even fifth option.
How many touchdowns? 13 last year?
Yeah. Not even 4 years ago with Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson emerging. So James Jones wasn't in the conversation. Now he's arguably their number one or number two, depending on Nelson and his health. So it's really amazing that Rodgers can transform these wide receivers into elite fantasy options and elite wide receivers.
No, for sure, man. And again, you look at what the Packers can do. Again, on the ground, I was talking about this with Eddie Lacy.
Yeah.
29 carries, 94 yards. James Starks, 7 carries, 57 yards. And I was mentioning with Ryan Grant, when he went down for the Packers, James Starks stepped up, and now he's still in Green Bay running the football effectively behind Eddie Lacy.
Right, and that's what makes this Packer team that much scarier, is that they now have a bona fide number one running back in Eddie Lacy. And then you mentioned James Starks, still super effective. 7 carries, 55 yards is a great stat. But Lacy has been, his past, 3-4 weeks since he came back from a concussion, he's been on fire. And watching, you could really see that Packers O-line just dominating the Minnesota front seven. So that's, when you have a great running back and a great quarterback, this offense is scary.
You could do a lot of stuff with it. And again, their defense too. I was diving into the Bears game for next Monday Night Football. Not only is Lambeau Field going to be electric, but this defense is going to be ready to go. And we have a caller here. I'll put you on hold in just a second. But this defense, these cornerbacks, Sham Shields, they also have a rookie this season. Micah Hyde, I believe, is Micah Hyde.
Micah
Hyde. He's an unbelievable talent. 6 tackles. He's had 6 or 7 tackles the past few weeks.
Yeah, no, this Packers defense has taken a lot of flack since they made their Super Bowl run because Dom Capers, everyone loves to. They were great with Charles Woodson and they turned the ball over a lot, but they gave up a lot of points. They gave up a lot of yards. So they 31 last night was a lot, but you got to factor in Cordell Patterson's kickoff return,
right?
And then talk about AP. Did you see that tough touchdown run?
Yeah,
running over AJ Hawk.
AJ Hawk's playing very well this year,
right? So but no, you're talking about this Packers defense. It's much better this year. You mentioned the secondary talent's better, but Hawk's been better. Clay Matthews been better. And that defensive line. Talking about Jonathan Jolly.
They still have him?
Yeah, interesting story. He had served his 3-year suspension for drug offenses. So, and he's playing really well too. So this Packers defense, overall, this Packers team is looking really, really good.
And again, it's scary because the way this Bears rushing defense against the run is playing right now, it's a little pathetic to watch. And the way, again, with Lance Briggs being out 4 to 6 weeks, Briggs does a lot against the run. He's right there up the middle, up the gap. Even though he's on the left or right side, he's always there to stop. Especially without Urlacher, he's calling the plays on defense, and to not have that, Bostwick is maybe going to have to do that. I don't know who's going to call plays, but Rodgers could pick apart this Bears defense at Lambeau, and that's the scary part.
Right. Not only that, Lacy could run all over the place on him too. So this is going to be a very, very, very tough game for the Bears, especially with McCown at quarterback now. And thankfully, he's had the bye week to prepare.
You talk about preparation, but McCown has played a game against the Packers. I don't know if you remember this Christmas Day, Christmas night, a few years ago. He played a game for the Bears at Lambeau Field. So,
all right, yeah, and then we mentioned the bye week. So Trestman and him have been working, getting that offense under shape. But I think if the Bears have any chance, they're going to have to rely heavily on Marshall and heavily on Matt Forte.
No doubt about it. But one thing I've heard from someone else was you can't stave away from the passing attack. And that's the big thing, even though it'd be disrespectful to Josh McCown. And even though you want to give the ball to Matt Forte, maybe pound the ball 3 straight times, maybe that's the opinion that a Bears fan has just because you're thinking, it's Jay Cutler, he's out. McCown can't do it. We saw what McCown did against the Redskins. And he's had experience in the league. We talked about it. Maybe the turnovers aren't especially great the way he's played in the past couple of seasons, but he can sling it and he gets those quick passes out of his hands fast.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. The guy's been around the league a long time, and there's a reason. He's obviously had success as a backup, filling in when he needs to. And so the Bears are definitely going to need – they're not going to need a Christian Ponder game from him. They're going to need –
14 for 21 with 145 yards.
Right. They're going to need something close to what Jay Cutler would provide them if they want to have a chance in this game. So, and I think it's a great point. Like, he's been around the league, so he can throw those quick passes. He can sling it around like he did against the Redskins. So it'll be a good game, but I just think overall this Bears team is way overmatched against the Packers.
It's scary, but you never know what can happen, and that's what we were talking about in baseball with, again, baseball magic with Uehara. I was mentioning this earlier. We'll get to the caller in just a second, but I was talking about it. Yadier Molina was on the on-deck circle, and then he looked so upset because the Cardinals were down 2 runs. He was thinking, even if he gets out, or if this guy gets on, I have a chance to step up and maybe continue this game. And then when Craig got picked off, his facial expression was just in shock.
I thought Beltran's was even better. I mean, he's in the batter's box. This has been the most consistent.
Beltran, not Yadi.
Yeah,
you're
well,
right.
Yadi was on deck. He was, but Beltran was in the batter's box, and this has been the most consistent playoff hitter of the past decade. And just his face is like, are you kidding me? And the poor runner was a rookie. It wasn't Craig. It was
they pinch ran for Craig.
I think Wong was his name.
Okay.
And did you notice he apparently has this like hop step when he takes a step. So Uehara timed it perfectly. As the guy's hopping in midair, Uehara turns to throw, so the guy can't immediately go back to the bag. And I mean, it was timed perfectly. So you wonder, if they study film like that or whatnot. But talk about Boston Magic, Johnny Gomes and Koji Uehara.
That was terrific. And again, you never know what can happen in a football game. Just going back to the Bears and Packers, yeah. McCowan could have a great game, but then again, he could get blown up by the Packers defense.
Right.
We're going to take our caller here, so please tell me what's your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, this is Max Huntley. How are you doing, Tom? Happy birthday.
Thanks, Max.
You got to give him the happy birthday shout out. And again, if anyone else wants to call in and wish Tom happy birthday, you could do so as well. Not just talk sports, we're also happy birthday, and we'll sing along as well.
Oh, no.
But yeah, no, Tom's getting a little nervous. But Max, I know you want to dive into the Redskins here.
Oh well, we don't need to talk about that. Up 21-7, and then you give up God knows how many unanswered points.
38 unanswered points there, Maxie.
Is that what it was? Okay, yeah. Not so good. That doesn't need to be discussed. What needs to be discussed is Mike Matheny lost the game last night. When I was in Little League, and the manager always said, when it's close in the ninth, stay close to the bag. You're not going to steal a base. Matheny should have been up screaming at either whoever was on first base or the first base coach to scream, tell him not to lead.
Right. But
we got one of the most clutch postseason hitters of this century at the plate, and they just completely took the bat out of his hands.
Right. Well, that's what we were saying. Just Beltran's expression really said it all. Like, are you kidding me? And the poor guy's a rookie in his first World Series in his first season. I understand he's like a base stealing expert, but like you said, you need to hug the bag when you have Beltran on the plate.
Yeah, you don't even get close. And the crazy thing about it is, you look historically, closers have by far the worst pickoff percentage in the world. Mariano Rivera, greatest closer of all time, can't pick off a soul.
Right.
That's unheard of for a closer to pick someone off, especially a right-handed closer, nonetheless. But yeah, that's just a complete coaching mistake, and obviously, a rookie. Yeah, and in all fairness, would have Beltran hit a home run? Probably not. Would the Cardinals come back to win that game? Probably not. But still, you got to still give yourself a chance. The Cardinals have shown, give them a strike, and they'll take it a mile. 2 years ago.
Right. No, or even Alan Craig on a the guy couldn't even run. That would have been a stand-up double for almost any player. But the guy's foot is so messed up, he blasts it. Just something like that, you just give Craig one pitch and he almost hits a home run on a broken foot. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And Kirk Gibson's happened once. It's never going to happen again. But that's again, Matheny kind of blew that game away a little bit.
I wouldn't go that far. I think
both those managers are overthinking. With their bullpen too. I'm sorry, they're all overthinking.
That was impressed. Though Lackey coming in like that. Do you see how fired up he was?
That was great, and a great move by John Phil.
Yeah.
To bring him in you talk about a gutsy call.
Right.
And again, that was a point made on Twitter. Should Lackey stay in the game for the ninth? But you're gonna bring your closer, a guy who's been dominant all postseason long.
Right.
Absolutely. But these two pitching staffs are barring on the two best starting pitching staffs in the league. Why? I'm a firm believer in 65 or 70% of your number one starter, number one or number two starter, is better than what you got in the bullpen. I'm a firm believer in that.
That's a fair. Was it Buchholz last night?
Was Buchholz 4 innings for him, and then they went to Dubron.
Yeah, and Dubron pitched. To be fair to John Farrell, Dubron pitched very, very well last night, coming in relief. But no, I like, and Buchholz had an unbelievable year this year too, and I feel like the leash has been very short on him all postseason. So I think that's an interesting point too.
The leash has been short on Buchholz since he came in the league. I mean, he throws a no-hitter, gets sent down to the minor leagues. He's always been like that. They think he's this wild child that doesn't know how to pitch, and he's actually a darn good pitcher.
Right.
Buchholz can pitch. You're right about that. And again, this Red Sox team, the depth that they have, again, having Dubron, a guy you can go to in the back end of your bullpen. Now the question for me is, you're bringing Lackey now. So then when do you go to him next? Having the series tied up at 2.
Well, you have Lester tonight,
and then you go to Lackey game 6 or PV game 6.
Maybe you see how Lackey's feeling. I mean, he only pitched an inning.
But right. See, that's the thing. We talked about this with Scherzer. It brings a pitcher out of their motion, just going out there, pitching for an inning, and thank God Lackey pitched well because we saw the first pitch, it was wide and outside, and I thought this isn't going to go well for Lackey, but then he settled down, so it was good for him.
Right, that's why I think you can still go to Lackey on Wednesday night, just specifically because he pitched an inning and he got the up three down. If he had pitched terribly, then you probably would have gone to PV because then that would have messed with his psyche a ton. So I think
if the Cardinals don't win tonight, they're not going to win the series.
Right.
They have their number one. I mean, I saw Waino pitch at the beginning of the year, and he was lights out. I mean, if they can't win tonight, they don't deserve to win the series, and 2, they won't win the series. I think Lester's pitched great this whole postseason. He pitched great in Game 1.
He's pitched great his whole career in the postseason.
He's just been consistently clutch, and this is 2-2 Game 5 of the World Series on the road. I mean, this is when people start talking about who is the hero here. Lester has a chance if he shuts the Cardinals down tonight to be considered a postseason hero. And Waino's got it right for the taking too. I mean, you can't go back. You can't go 3-2 down back to Fenway. You're not going to win.
Especially the way Wainwright pitched in Game 1. He wants to make up for that, no doubt, tonight. And you mentioned it. The Cardinals cannot go back 3-2. The Red Sox will have 2 chances to win that, and you're thinking Game 6.
Game 6,
shut that one down.
They have Waka though. I'm just saying he was
lights out Game 2.
All postseason, the guy. End of the regular season, the postseason, Waka has been bar none the best pitcher.
If the Cardinals can win this game, then you're thinking they can win this in 6.
Absolutely.
Sure. But I mean, as I said, it's tough. It'll be tough to win 2 on the road. It'll be very tough.
No, it will, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about this Cardinals staff, though, going in the future, this Red Sox staff, both of their bullpens, they're in great shape.
Right.
Having Waka and Wainwright and Lester and Buchholz at your 1 and 2.
And then I just love how Koji Uehara was the 3rd option as closer going into this year, and he's turned into one of the most dominant closers in the majors.
And he picks a guy off.
Right, and the pickoff, that was crazy.
And I must say, up for about 10 years before 04 and 2007, the Red Sox really never had that guy that was the closer. They had Tim Lynn and Alan Embry. Those guys were glorified.
Bobby Jenks.
Yeah, Bobby Jenks, someone like that. And I know in 2004 they had Keith Polk, and I know in 07 they had Papelbon, but I mean, they've always struggled with finding that guy that can get you 4 or 5 outs at the end of the game to win. And, I'm hoping this guy that they've found, out of nowhere is the guy. I'm not hoping he's the guy. I'm hoping that the Red Sox, do what they did last year next year.
Yeah,
I'm hoping they
I don't know.
But
that's an interesting point, though. We've talked about this in the past. It's really relatively the same roster as last year, minus all the big names. And so you got to tip your hat to Farrell because whatever he did, it got this pitching staff to work, turned Lackey around.
Well, Farrell, I mean, in all honesty, I'm not trying to discount what Farrell's done, but I mean, Farrell was the pitching coach before. Farrell knows all these guys knew Farrell. He's Francona's other guy.
See, that's where I don't give a manager too much credit unless he's done something big. And again, you talk about him being a pitching coach. He knows these guys, and he's worked with Buchholz. He's worked with Lester, and you see the work Lester's put in with Farrell and the other pitching coaches. It's made a huge difference. That's where you give Farrell the credit. Maybe not game-to-game situations, but specific players.
Right. No, I'm just saying, but the guy was a dud in Toronto, and then he comes to Boston back to a situation.
I don't get. I see you got to credit that to players. I don't credit the talent.
I'm just saying that he had a lot of talent on that Toronto roster. I'm not saying he should have won a World Series.
Did it work out in Miami though?
No, it did. I'm just saying it's interesting how he went from Toronto really not doing too much to taking a Boston team that basically quit on Terry Francona and carrying them to the verge of the World Series title.
I can't disagree with that. But then again, this Boston team is a different team than it was in 2011.
Yeah.
Okay. 2011. It a little bit. Obviously, a lot of the guys are the same with Ortiz, the main guys. But some of these leaders like Johnny Gomes coming out of nowhere, and he's a huge leader on the Red Sox.
Absolutely.
It's good for baseball. It's good for teams that have had a crappy year to come back 1 year later and say, hey, this is what can be done. And I mean, the Cardinals deserve all the credit in the world. They let Pujols go. They bring in guys like Beltran who are way past their prime. That veteran leadership, and they've really brought the team up from their farm system. And the payroll. I'm not saying that the Cardinals are a small market team because they're not, but they sure do act like it. And I think big name organizations like the New York Yankees, like Los Angeles Angels, maybe even like the Texas Rangers of recent years, need to kind of take a look at it and see, listen, this might be the strategy going forward.
That's true. All right, Max, we're going to have to cut it to a break here, but thank you very much for the phone call, man.
Yeah, good talking to you. Happy birthday, Tom. See you later.
Thanks, Max.
Again, if anyone else wants to wish Tom a happy birthday or sing along to that birthday song that we all know and love dearly, you can do that at 773-325-7341. You could also call in and talk some sports. But, Tom, we'll dive into the Broncos and Redskins for Max next. Not just to hate on the Redskins, but for Peyton Manning's sake, after that Colts game, what he did yesterday was terrific to get the Broncos back into shape, but without Julius Thomas as well, who was out.
Right, and we matched, they were down in a hole there, 21-7, and to reel off 38 unanswered points is quite a feat.
It's Peyton Manning-esque, to say the least. And
typical Peyton Manning. Doesn't even shock us anymore.
Exactly, and we'll dive into the Broncos next, and then we'll be having Scott Powers on with us to talk some Blackhawks and DePaul Blue Demons, and again, DePaul basketball starts up tomorrow as they play Lewis at the McGrath-Phillips Arena. We'll be diving into the Denver Broncos next in typical old Peyton Manning. Again, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. We do want to take a quick song break here.
Sounds good. We'll play Tip It Back by Florida Georgia Line.
All right, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
Chair on your front porch, tip it back. When you got a Georgia Bulldog ball cap, tip it back. When you're parked back off a dirt road in your girlfriend's Cadillac, find that button on the front seat and tip it back. Oh yeah, yeah. If you had a long day or a long week, grab a long neck if you're with me. Well, come on. Tip it back. When you're two-stepping with your baby, man, tip her back. When you don't get paid next week, but you need some drinking cash, find that coffee can stash and tip it back. Come on, man. Yeah, if you had a long day or a long week, grab a long neck if you're with me. Well, come on now, holler hell yeah. Tonight we're here to party, and don't worry about anything except what's in your glass. Whether it's a cold beer, tequila, or a double shot of Jack, yeah, all you need to do tonight is tip it back. Oh, put that bottle to your lip, take a sip, man, tip it back. Well, tie a chair, stand nice. like with your tongue, girl, tip it back. If you like a pineapple, coconut, or rum, baby, tip it back. Come on, pretty girl. If you got a homegrown moonshine flask, y'all tip it back. Come on. If you had a long day or a long week, grab a long neck if you're with me. Well, come on now, holler hell yeah, 'cause tonight we're here to party. And don't worry about anything except what's in your glass. Whether it's a cold beer, tequila, or a double shot of Jack, yeah, all you need to do tonight is tip it back. Yeah, all you need to do tonight is tip it back. Yeah, tip it back. Yeah, tip it back. All right.
Moreno inside the 30, inside the 10. Moreno to the end zone.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. And again, you heard one of Peyton Manning's new favorite targets and a guy who wasn't even supposed to come into this season being the starting tailback, Monty Ball from Wisconsin. But no, Sean Moreno is, again, come out of nowhere, a guy within the past couple of years in Denver but not doing too much. And he's starting this year and playing well.
Right, yeah. I mean, you talk about a guy who was an afterthought coming into the season. Many thought he'd be cut even before training camp ended. But, you know, Monty Ball disappointed, Ronnie Hillman disappointed. Both have fumbling issues, and Moreno stepped in. Him and Peyton have developed a real connection on that screen game. That touchdown there was on a screen. And he's been somewhat effective in the running game. Not great, but what they need from their running backs, because they still have Peyton Manning who can sling it.
Monty Ball actually got some carries yesterday, 11 carries, 37 yards, and touchdowns.
He got the touchdown, yeah.
So they're starting to work him in a little bit more than I thought. But still, Moreno, 14 carries, 44 yards, and Peyton Manning, 3 picks. I didn't see that. So
yeah, he struggled early on. Like you mentioned, you were saying in quarters 1 through 3, he really didn't show up. So I think that's where those 3 picks came. And D'Angelo Hall actually took one of them back for a touchdown.
Yeah, it's a typical D'Angelo Hall move. What he did against Jay Cutler a couple years ago, too. 3 picks, or 4 of them, actually, and one of them to the house.
Right, and then he gets burned for 4 touchdowns until he has another interception. The guy is a bum and a terrible player, but he can make some exciting interception returns.
Hate on Max's Washington Redskins, but you look at, again, what Denver had at the receiving core yesterday. Moreno, maybe not through the running game, but 6 carries, 6 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown there.
Right.
Wes Welker, what more can you say but them being one of the best pickups in the offseason? 2 years, $12 million.
That's insane, and especially the production he's given them so far, and he's going to continue to give them. That is very cheap.
That receiving core being, if Julius Thomas is good to go, hopefully he is, Julius Thomas, Wes Welker, Eric Decker, and Demaryius Thomas. In no particular order.
Right, in no particular. Yeah, I mean, Peyton, so far this year it's been Julius Thomas, but Eric Decker had a huge game last week against the Colts.
Demaryius Thomas isn't even the number 1 guy, I feel like, right now.
And
but he could be in a couple weeks.
He could be, though. I mean, he arguably could have the most talent. It's not fair. It's not fair that they can have Peyton Manning and all those receivers.
It's not fair for fantasy owners.
Right, yeah.
But you look at Eric Decker, 4 catches, 42 yards. Demaryius, 7 catches, 75, and a touchdown. Having a nice game yesterday. Andre Caldwell, a guy who's been in New England and Cincinnati, 1 catch, 14 yards. Jacob Tammy in Indianapolis as well with Peyton, too.
Right.
1 catch, 15 yards.
Yeah, I thought I was going to – I was big on Tammy last year as a fantasy option with Peyton. Yeah. Him and them connecting together. Didn't work out, but it's nice to see him have a catch there. But Julius Thomas –
1 catch.
Yeah. Julius Thomas, though, has been unbelievable this season. So hopefully he's okay and get back to the way. Sort of like Jimmy Graham came back yesterday.
No, exactly. Having that touchdown. Nice game. And Drew Brees continues over and over again. Gosh. Also talking about the NFC South here, the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
4-3 right now.
Cam Newton. A lot of things going around right now on the sports sites about Ron Rivera finally learning how to coach his Panthers team, because they've lost so many close games under his 3 years.
Former defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears.
And San Diego Chargers, I believe.
And head coach of the Chargers after the Bears gig. After they made it to the Super Bowl, he went to San Diego.
And he was head coach there?
Yeah, I think so. Or unless he took the same job.
Took the same job, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I'm gonna look
You're
that.
right. North Turner was the head coach.
Right.
There. You're
That's
right.
what. Yeah. But yeah, talk about that's a team loaded with talent, and not to mention Cam Newton's arguably a top 5 quarterback when he plays his best. So that's definitely a team to watch out for, especially the Falcons. Oh, getting blown out by Arizona.
Ted Ginn Jr. though, the Falcons are just playing very poor football right now. But Ted Ginn Jr. being the leading receiver for the Panthers, 5 catches, 80 yards. Steve Smith, 4 catches, 42. Not even in a running game. Cam Newton led the team in rushing, and he only had 50 yards on 11 carries. So this Panthers football team, again, as you said, they're playing well.
And their defense finally healthy. John Beeson's finally playing a full season. Hasn't done that in 2 years.
That's a good call right there.
So and then they have arguably the best middle linebacker in the game, in Luke Kuechly, I think is how you say it.
Where did he go to college?
I believe he went to BC.
I think you're right. Yeah, Boston College, second year in the league.
Yeah, he
first rounder last year.
Yeah, everyone has been blown away by him, and he's amazing. He's great to watch.
And again, you're talking about one of the best corners in the league. You'll be able to watch him tonight on Monday Night Football for Tom. Richard Sherman.
Oh, Richard Sherman, yeah.
You almost forgot about that name.
Oh, well, I didn't know we were talking Seahawks right now.
I'm sorry about
just jumping around. Yeah, no, everyone should tune into the game tonight. I know World Series Game 5, maybe flipping between the both, but we were talking before the break. It's only going to be 60% capacity for the Rams tonight just because the Cardinals, you can't blame them. The Rams are having a bad year, and why wouldn't you want to go see your team in the World Series?
Yeah, if you want to, you know exactly. With the Cardinals being there, why not go check out the World Series or just stay home and watch both games?
Right.
Or just not watch the Rams and watch the Cardinals instead. I'm sure the Seahawks are going to put on shellacking. But just talking about the Seahawks game, if you want to take the Mega Bus down, I'm sure that's an option for Tom or any other Seahawks fan that wants to check it out.
$8 tickets for the Rams game tonight. So.
300 level or upper deck?
I'm sure they're probably 300 level.
Maybe you can get $30 tickets for the 100 level.
Right. Yeah, that would be nice.
You never know. But I mean, this Seahawks team has an opportunity to go 7-1.
Yeah. And 7-1. And almost sort of take control of the NFC. It's sort of between them and the Saints, because with that win over the 49ers, they really are in the driver's seat in terms of the NFC West. And so it's really between the Saints and the Seahawks for home field advantage. And you got to believe the Seahawks get home field advantage in the playoffs.
Those are 2 really good 1 and 2 seeds.
Yeah. You don't want to go to either place to play, the Superdome or 21st.
Yeah, we talked about the Chiefs having a great home field a couple weeks ago, and the Seahawks as well. The Superdome in New Orleans is just as tough.
Right. And Browns put up a fight against the Chiefs this weekend.
Yeah, we talk about that Browns deal and Trent Richardson again not playing. He hasn't been playing too well in Indy.
Not at all.
The Colts have just been playing well as a team, but they have some options with Ahmad Bradshaw and Trent Richardson. But now the Colts might be able to use a number 1 receiver, and that's what I was thinking about talking with another guy earlier, that maybe they should have not traded for Trent Richardson and try to wait around for Josh Gordon.
Yeah, that's looking like that might have been the better option, especially with the way Gordon's been playing since he came back from his suspension. He's been on fire. Doesn't matter who's throwing the ball for the Cleveland Browns, because Josh Gordon and Jeff Cameron both have been great. But yeah, Richardson has done absolutely nothing. I think he averaged 2.5 yards per carry since joining the Colts, and that's just unacceptable, especially for a number 3 overall pick.
Yeah, no, but again, going back to the Saints team right now, Drew Brees threw 5 touchdowns and missed 8 passes, 26 for 34. Pierre Thomas, 14 carries, 65 yards. He went to U of I believe, actually. So I'm gonna look that up for you. So former Illinois product. He went to Illinois, 7 years in the league right now. So he's playing the Saints and he's got the Illinois respect right now. Kenny Stills, former Oklahoma receiver, 3 catches, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Brees is the same kind of guy as Rodgers, though. You can put anybody around him, and he turns them into superstars on a week-to-week basis.
Benjamin Watson?
Yeah.
This guy's come back from the dead to play for Drew Brees.
Yeah, I know. Brady, he's been all around the league.
With Tom Brady?
Mm-hmm. And then I know he was in Tennessee for a while. But I saw something crazy. Brees and Marquise Colston have been the longest-serving quarterback-wide receiver tandem now, after someone broke up.
I guess they knocked up Peyton and Wayne.
No. Just like currently, I think with Reggie Wayne going down, Brees and Colston have been together longest current streak in a row.
Okay.
Not like history. I gotta look. I saw a tidbit about that. I just thought that was really interesting, though.
I mean, yeah, Marcus Colston. You want to look at his stats on the season. Colston hasn't put up too many impressive stats. 27 catches, 342. But then you look at what the Saints have done all around, and Kenny Stills is having himself a year, 13 catches through 27. As you said, Brees can spread it.
Right. And that's talking about fantasy dangers. I must like to stay away from the Saints wide receivers.
You like to keep that Saints quarterback though.
Right, absolutely. If you can get your hands on him.
Yeah, no, but you look again. This Saints defense too, with having Rob Ryan there defensively, and we were talking about it just a couple weeks ago before we take a break. That Rob Ryan, how long is it going to take for the Saints defense to get over that Patriots loss? They've gotten over in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah, they've played really well since then. And that was just a tough loss. We mentioned Rob Ryan's reaction on that last second touchdown by Tom Brady. So yeah, it's been amazing how he's been able to come in immediately and make an impact. So that's great to see. And obviously Sean Payton back and that offense is back to its old ways.
Saints go to Seattle on Monday, December 2nd on Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
that's a heck of a game.
I'm excited for that because that could be a foreshadowing of the NFC Championship game.
You're looking at it, and that's going to be probably the decider between who gets that home field advantage, and it's in Seattle. So you could be looking at, do the Seahawks get to keep another game? If it's the Saints-Seahawks again in the NFC Championship, does Marshawn Lynch get another beast mode run against the Saints, or does he have to do it in New Orleans? You never know for Tom. We got to take a quick break here. Scott Powers will be joining us next to talk Blackhawks and a little bit of DePaul basketball. Again, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Tom, what song do we have for listeners?
We'll do a ZZ Top song. We'll do Give Me All Your Lovin'.
All right. Again, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
What you got is so
Now, boys and girls, it's time again for... There's only one radio station that connects you to DePaul University.
I don't know. I just enjoy it.
Chicago.
My kind of town.
And the world.
I guess it's just because you're different somehow.
It's Radio DePaul.
You hear me? Hear me?
Chicago's college connection.
There's nothing like Chicago staples, deep dish pizza, the Crosstown Classic, and my favorite, sandwiches. Costello's has been serving Chicago since 1997. With locations in 4 Chicago neighborhoods, wide delivery zones, and ordering online, there's no reason not to indulge. Come to Costello's for sandwiches, fresh salads, and hot and cold sides, including their famous Chipotle mac and cheese. And did I mention their 2 new stores near DePaul at 2235 North Lincoln and in Wrigleyville at 3349 North Sheffield? So come on into Costello's for a classic taste of Chicago.
You are connected to Radio DePaul.
Some nights I stay up, cashing in my bad luck. Some nights I call it a draw. Some nights I wish that my lips could build a castle. Some nights I wish they just fall off. But I still wake up. What a play! What I stand for. What do I stand for? What do I stand for?
I stand for big goals in the biggest games.
And for Patrick Kane, that is a hat trick to complete the night.
I stand for overtime winners.
Seabrook on the ribbon line to the score! The Blackhawks have dispatched the Detroit Red Wings.
We stand for 2 goals
in 17 seconds.
I stand for living out childhood dreams.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago Blackhawks have won the Stanley Cup for the 2nd time in 4 seasons.
I stand for championship celebrations with a few million of our closest friends.
This Stanley Cup team stands for you.
Fontaine cleared it ahead. Koivu, good save by Crawford. Mikko Koivu got a lot on it. Moving left, shooting right, and Crawford a fine stop.
Corey Crawford's made a couple of real good saves in this game. And that one was right near the top of the charts. As you mentioned, Pat, skate one way, shoot back the other way, trying to get the goaltender in between, but you see Crawford.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Well, Mr. Scott Powers, who writes for ESPN 1000, writing about the Blackhawks and the DePaul Blue Demons, on in just a couple minutes. He's on hold with us, and again, we appreciate that. But again, the Chicago Blackhawks on a tough streak right now after the Wild loss and the Lightning loss on Thursday night.
Yeah, you mentioned the tough loss last night. 5 goals given up by Corey Crawford, and the Blackhawks offense scoring 3, which usually should be enough with Crawford in net, but obviously wasn't. So they got to look to bounce back tonight and back-to-back against the Wild. Yeah, and we'll get Mr. Scott Powers on with us. So, Mr. Powers, are you with us?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So, again, for the listeners who weren't with us last time, I'll just tell the listeners what you do for ESPN 1000. Again, I know we mentioned that you cover the Blackhawks, but specifically what you do for the Blackhawks and for the Blue Demons.
Yeah, I cover the Blackhawks for ESPNChicago.com. I cover the team mostly when it's home. We travel a little bit, especially during the playoffs, but I go to all the practices, the games, and then write for the website. And then I used to cover high school and college a lot more, and I don't dabble as much as I used to. So I still follow it, and I'm going to try to do some more during the college hoop season, but it's a little bit harder now with covering the Blackhawks full time. So, yeah, I've been with ESPN now going on 5 years. So I'm in my 2nd year on the Blackhawks beat.
Terrific, and you get to cover the best hockey team in Chicago, which is perfect. And unfortunately for you, they lost Saturday night. Now 6-2-3 on the season, back-to-back loss. They got the 1 point with the Thursday night loss, and then the loss against Minnesota on Saturday. But talking about that loss, Corey Crawford, we played the highlight where he had a nice save when they were down 2-0, but the 5 goals just isn't going to cut it. Tom was talking about, when your offense plays that well, you get 3 goals. Maybe Crawford shuts down for 2, but he led a 5, which isn't really acceptable against this. Minnesota's 6-3-3, so it's solid, but they aren't the best offensive squad in the league.
Yeah, and I don't think it was much of Corey Crawford's fault. When you look at the goals, none of them were too soft. Maybe he makes a couple saves that he normally, would make. But overall, I thought that, some defensive breakdowns, some careless turnovers. The penalties kind of added up again. I think they have 5 penalties, so they're on the penalty kill a lot, and give up another penalty kill goal. So I think that those are more factors than what them struggling. And then the offense was, they scored the 2 goals in the third period, and neither one of them had too much significance. So there was offense, but it kind of came late when they got a little bit desperate and pushing, and being a little bit risky on that end. So. When looking back at that game, I don't place too much blame on Crawford. I think some of it was with the penalties, some was just some costly puck play, and then the game before that, where I think the blame goes a little bit more on the goaltending, where Nikolai Hovig-Bolin really struggled and give up some softer goals than you've seen this season from the Blackhawks. So I think that's a concern going forward, and he may have a couple chances to play this week, but. I still think Crawford's play has been pretty good. I've seen all the games, and there haven't been many goals where I thought that he really got beat too bad or wasn't. The blame could have been placed elsewhere.
Right. Looking at his 4 previous games before that Wild game, he hadn't given up more than 2 goals. So he's actually looked very well, very good this season. But lucky for the Blackhawks and for Corey Crawford, they get another chance tonight to avenge that loss on Saturday night to the Wild. And you mentioned, you didn't think Crawford was carried too much of the blame for that loss the other night. So do you think the Hawks will cut down on those penalties and come away with the W tonight?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance. They're obviously motivated. I think that was about as bad as they've played all season in that game. I think one factor is getting some of those top lines going. I think the power play has been pretty good, and obviously Brian Bickle's played pretty well lately with 4 goals in the last 4 games. But, guys like Sharp and Hossa, those guys really haven't been that consistent. Sharp's getting a lot of shots on net, leads the team in shots on goal, but he has only 1 goal to show for it. So, him traditionally, he's a pretty good shooting scorer, and his numbers, the shooting percentage, usually 10 to 12%, that sort of numbers. And right now there's I think 2.2. So obviously he's missing a lot more than he's making. So. If everything, kind of goes to how it normally is, and I think Sharp bounces back, and, they actually moved Brandon Perry to the second line tonight, probably produce some more offense on that second line. They really haven't been able to get that second line going with Hans Zeus there, who's been pretty slow and just hasn't been able to get up in the play, and I think they're hoping maybe that moving Perry, who just came up last week from Rockford, maybe sparks them and gets, it'll be Saad and Kane on that second line tonight, so maybe get both those guys going on as well. Kane's been pretty good, but a lot of his production has been from the power play, so maybe get him going on that second line can kind of spark the rest of the team as well.
You talked about in the beginning there, like that point, that Brian Bickle with the 4 goals in 4 games. Bickle's been playing big time for the Hawks, but on the opposite of the power play for the Blackhawks, their power play defense hasn't been too stellar. And you mentioned the article with Michael Frolik's absence, that also is affecting their power play defense. So what do the Blackhawks need to get that side of things going?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I really didn't. I knew that Frolik was key to their success last year, and but I kind of wrote him off, thinking that one of these younger guys would step into that role, and I've been wrong. They've really struggled to find someone that can be paired with Marcus Kruger, kind of that top forward pairing on the first unit, and Kruger's been on the ice for a lot of the goals, and I don't think a lot of them have been his fault. Where I think. They tried Joakim Nordstrom, the rookie, up there when he first started, and he won the job out of camp, and then he kind of struggled. And Saad's played there a little bit, and Ben Smith, and Hans Zeus played there recently, and he was doing a little bit better, but obviously he's out now. So, Brad Mills, the guy they just called from Rockford, hopefully they're hoping maybe he's the key there. But yeah, they've struggled to find that guy that's been able to pair with Kruger. And Frolik was just he was a smart player, was had some quickness, some speed, was pretty good at just deflecting the puck. And him and Kruger were on the same page. They both, it's one of those things where you need to be aggressive at the same time. If one guy waits back, or if they're not on the same page, that's sometimes how they get burned. So I think finding someone to have that sort of that skill set along with having that chemistry is key, and so far they struggle to find it.
Right, especially after last year with how dominant their power play defense was. This is almost a little shocking that one player's absence could cause such a breakdown. And you mentioned earlier like Jesus being banged up and stuff. Are you chalking this up to he's 36, he's getting up there. Hockey obviously takes a toll on the body. Do you think Quenneville is going to take his time bringing him back, even though Kruger replaced him on Saturday and struggled a little?
He's he played through was a MCL and a wrist injury during the Stanley Cup playoffs. Both were, I believe, both were broken, and torn MCL and fractured wrist, and he played through that. He's obviously a tough guy, but he required surgery in both areas in the off season, and it was a short off season, and they sent him out throughout the training camp for lots, and he didn't play any of the games, hoping to rest him up, and he's been all right at times this year, but he is getting older. Those injuries aren't things that are going to just go away. I think he probably needs more time to mend, and I think he's also, when he has played, he hasn't been up to speed where he was in the playoffs. He was such a key factor, so consistent, and you just kind of roll him as that second line center because he can distribute the puck. He's a pretty good passer. He's good at faceoffs, but through a whole season, it may not be realistic to have him playing there. He may be a guy that needs a lot of days off and maybe more suited for a fourth line role where he's not on the ice as often. So, he's out today, and I believe he's going to be out tomorrow's game, and then going forward, we'll see. They have a couple games this week, and so. I think if Perry fits in there, they'd love to have him as a second line center. He brings more offense. He may not be as reliable in some other areas, but you can probably deal with it if he's doing other things. So
kind of replacing Dave Bolland in a way.
In a way, yeah. No, and Dave Bolland's obviously had a great season for Toronto, but he wasn't that guy consistently for the Blackhawks, at least the last couple of years, just where. And I think Perry's more offensive minded than Bolland. I think Bolland. Especially in the playoffs, was so key to just being a defensive stopper and a guy that can kind of irritate people, and is really key in those defensive matches. So I think Perry's more high end offense, where he led the AHL in scoring last year, and his defense and some of those other areas need to work. But right now, the Blackhawks need to jumpstart their offense, and this may be the answer.
Exactly. Now, one more point here before we have to hit it to a break. What has gotten into the Colorado Avalanche? They're on top of the Central Division at 10-1, and St. Louis. Even though the Blackhawks have had their struggles, the Hawks are still up a point. But the Avalanche are at 10-1, leading the Blackhawks by 5 points. Of course, Minnesota, a big game for the Blackhawks because even though early in the season, Hawks are still tied with them in points. But just touching on the Avalanche right now, what do you think is their strong suit to begin this season?
Yeah, obviously having Patrick Waugh there's done a lot of wonders with them, and they have some young talent that's playing really well, and I think it's building some confidence early on. It's a team that you look at their penalty kill, they actually lead the league with in the percentage, and their power play's been pretty good, and they're just playing it's a really solid all around game now and playing with confidence, and I think at some point they're going to go through some struggles like most teams do during a full season and see how they respond to that, but it's definitely impressive the way they've come through and. Have had different guys step up, and it'll be. I'm curious to see them up close. I've seen them on TV a little bit, but when they play the Blackhawks, it'll be interesting to see what they're made of, and I think some of those challenges will be key for them down the road just to see whether they can sustain this.
You think we'll see a Minnesota-like collapse for them, like Minnesota did a couple years ago when they were the first team in the Western Conference, number one team?
I don't know. I think it can happen to anyone in the playoffs. I think the playoffs are such a crapshoot in the NHL. I think it's about getting a nice seed, and then sometimes it's just about matchups and the puck dropping the other way. Last year you look at the Blackhawks, they could have easily been eliminated by the Red Wings there, and it would have been a huge upset. And that could happen to anyone. Hockey is just a game that sometimes the best team doesn't always win, so it's hard to say at this point. But obviously Colorado's pretty impressive so far.
Exactly. All right, want to take a quick break here? You mind sticking around and talk some Blue Demons next? All right, thank you very much. We'll put down your mic, and next we'll be back on with Scott Powers, and we'll be diving into the DePaul Blue Demons men's basketball team who takes on Lewis for the preseason opener, their only preseason game.
Yeah, excited for that, especially since it'll be at McGrath. First chance at some of these incoming freshmen that we've hyped up a lot. So
yeah, Tom. Yeah, talk about hype. We see that sign, or I don't know if you get a chance to see it on the highway coming.
Who's next?
Yeah, who's next exactly with Tommy Hamilton, Billy Garrett, R.J. Currington, and Dwan Muero.
Yeah,
who of course is the not a freshman. He's a sophomore here, student-wise, but a freshman on the basketball team because of the torn ACL last season.
Right.
So we'll get into basketball next. DePaul men's basketball with Mr. Scott Powers. We come back. Again, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. And we'll take a quick song break here. What song do we have for the listeners, Tom?
Crazy One More Time by Kip Moore.
All right. And again, you are listening to the lineup. More from Mr. Scott Powers on this DePaul men's basketball team, who again takes on Lewis tomorrow. You are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
Your favorite beer, girl with the dress I always dream about. We'll chase the moon, ride the stars, find the muscle in this car. I know it's still got something left. Yeah, come on out, take my hand, feel my heart, girl, understand. I got a thunder pounding in my chest. Hey, I can't see you as nothing but mine. And girl, tonight, let's go crazy one more time. Starts playing through these rusty doors. And in this to get sweet hair tonight, I'll kiss you, girl, till I get it right, 'cause I know that'll lead to more. The weeds have all grown around where I'll gently lay you down, and I'll try to tell you how I feel. But you'll place your finger on my mouth, whisper, baby, no, not now. The night is young and we still got time to steal. Hey, I can't see you as nothing but mine. And girl, tonight, let's go crazy one more time. Hey. Jeans, I watch you fall fast asleep in this small town sky, fade from black to blue. And I wipe a tear from my eye, but you'll never know, 'cause baby, I'll smile as I wave goodbye to you. Hey, I can't see you as nothing but mine. And girl, tonight, let's go crazy one more time.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Real good. Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Mr. Powers, are you with us?
Yes.
Terrific. All right, let's dive into the men's basketball team who takes on Lewis tomorrow at McGrath. They do not go to the All-State, and that's luckily a good thing for us and the students, and we don't have to head on those buses over to the All-State just yet. But the first question I have for you is, have you heard anything about potential of these freshmen, with Moero obviously be on the team but with the torn ACL, and Garrett and Hamilton, and the chance of these guys starting tomorrow night?
No, I haven't heard a whole lot. Obviously, a lot of potential, a lot of those guys, and I think the key is, getting some confidence early on, and you hopefully do that against Lewis, and then, with some of the easier games being early on. But, Division I basketball is a different animal, especially at this level, and you see the most elite players have struggles early on. So I think, these are some talented kids, but they have some growing up to do and some adjustments to make at the D1 level. So I think early on, getting a lot of those guys minutes and getting them adapted to the game and the quickness and just, some gaining some confidence over the first month of the season or two before the Big Four conference play. It'll be key for this team, and I think it'll maybe determine how good DePaul will be this season.
Right. I know here at DePaul we're super excited about this incoming class. We'll finally get a chance to see them, and you made a good point. We got to sort of have to temper our expectations. We expect these guys to come in right away, and we were talking during the break, possibly 3 freshmen starting, but maybe that's just wishful thinking. But do you see these guys having the impact that we're hoping for? Does DePaul finally turn a corner this year with the revamped Big East and maybe make a move towards making the tournament in the years to come? Number
10 team projected in the Big East in the preseason rankings.
Yeah, it's a struggle because you obviously have some very experienced, talented players and Brandon Young and Cleveland and Melvin, and then you're mixing that with a lot of younger guys that you want to have an impact. You expect some of the guys like Jamie Crockett and Charles McKinney and some of those guys to take the next step, but then you need some of those freshmen to be better and to provide some consistency that DePaul hasn't had in the last few years. So I think guys like Billy Garrett certainly have that potential. I saw him play throughout his high school career, and definitely a point guard who has ability, can score a little bit, is going to distribute and make your team better. And guys like Dewan Marrero, I think I saw a little bit play in high school too. Where just he's a big energy player, can rebound and hopefully fit some of those roles where you just haven't been able to rebound the ball as well as other teams have. So I think guys like that. And then Tommy Hamilton, his upside is huge. He's a big player, but also can step out. And he at one point he was considered to be right there with Jabari and be one of those elite players. I think the potential is still there. So there's nothing definitive when you're relying on young players, but there's definitely a potential for DePaul to be a better team. Whether it's tournament bound, I don't see that happening this year, and it's going to get harder again because you lose your 2 best players next season, and you're relying on those freshmen taking that step. So I think no doubt DePaul's going to be better than what it has. It's going to be hard to repeat what they've done the last few years, but it may take some time with these freshmen. There may be some patience involved, and Brandon Young and Melvin are just they're really nice players. Have been great college players, and it's sad to see that their college careers really haven't been more of a winning note from all they've been able to do individually.
Yeah, my energy level went from about a 10 when you were talking about Hamilton and went down to like a 2 when we were getting to your projections for this season and in the future. But no, I agree with you. I think this DePaul basketball team, we have to temper expectations here because yes, this freshman class is good, but you were talking about how you're mixing in guys who have the veteran leadership and the guys who know what they're doing. It's college basketball. It's not the same thing as high school basketball. And then guys who are coming from that high school basketball experience. Now, obviously, Moero, I think, is a little different just because he sat on the bench. He knows what he's getting himself into. But with Garrett and Hamilton and also Forrest Robinson, who I'm excited for, I think he could get some minutes this year. Guys like that, I agree with you on that point.
I think the other key is that it's not even so much DePaul all the time. It's about they play in one of the best conferences in America. I think And that's where the difficulty of DePaul taking that next step has been. They've had some decent, like I said, Melvin and Young are both really good college players, and have had great careers. But then they play in a really tough conference, and it's obviously, it's shrunk a little bit. And but there's some still talented teams that, all of a sudden you still have to get over a Creighton and a Butler, teams traditionally that have been pretty good, maybe in mid-major conferences, but overall they've been able to compete with the big boys. So you'd like to think that this year they're going to be better than maybe Providence and schools like that. But at the same time, it's a smaller conference and a lot of talent still there. So I think for the key, DePaul is you're going to have to knock off a Butler, Creighton, some of those teams that have just entered the conference, and you got to get over somebody because they're still at the top. I think Georgetown and Marquette and some of those teams will still be a lead come this season, and you got to find a way up from the basement, and they just haven't been able to do it so far the last few years.
Yeah, hopefully, we can't go any lower, so hopefully we can go up from here. But
number 10 is the lowest they can go.
Right. You touched on like Creighton and Xavier and Butler joining the Big East this year, and I was wondering where do you see those teams fitting in? Do you think they're immediately going to come in and contend, or are there going to be some growing pains playing a full major conference schedule where no longer mid majors?
Yeah, I think there's some growing pains. I think overall there are programs that can compete at that level. I think they're going to start recruiting a different level of player too. I think all of a sudden, no matter how much success you've had in the past, going to the Final Four didn't make Butler a competitive recruiting wise for Downs All-Americans all of a sudden. I think a lot of that has to do with exposure and how often you're on TV and in the bigger conferences playing against better teams. So I think those teams they all have pretty good players, but I think for them it's going to be recruiting at a higher level and being able to grab McDonald's guys, grabbing guys even like Billy Garrett and top 100 players. I think for those teams will come in and they'll be competitive, but they'll need to get up to date and recruiting in those top players if they want to win over an entire season in the Big East and then be able to do that in the tournament where it's no longer where. I don't think the top teams don't see you. You get seen a lot more when you're playing a conference schedule like this. So, like I said, I think all the teams are pretty good teams, but I think there are some areas that are going to need to get better to be competitive consistently.
Yeah, touching on, again, you were talking about the top teams that you have to jump over, and Marquette and Georgetown. Question is, can you do that? We don't know yet, but I'm really confused with this Jameel McKay story. Leaving Marquette. Marquette's projected to be the number 1 team in the Big East, and he doesn't. And he leaves Marquette before the games even begin, before a preseason game happens. Can you fill me in on the story? If you have any information about what happened or why he left or where he's going to go to?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I've heard about it, but I haven't heard any other details just from what I've read even on our website and ESPN. And I don't know what was behind it. Obviously, that was someone they thought they'd have an impact this year, and something didn't add up. So, I think it takes away from what Marquette has, but it still has some players there. And I'm not sure exactly where he's headed now.
Yeah, Marquette is still, I still think they're going to be probably the best team in this conference. But I think what I'm most excited about is getting to see Doug McDermott play. First Big
East game of the year at the All-State.
Right, yeah. And, this is a guy who's been a back-to-back All-American, and now he's a walk-on. He gave up his scholarship, so a sixth-year senior could get it. So I'm just really excited to see him play because he could potentially torch Melvin down low just because Melvin's defense really is atrocious.
You got to hope Melvin's taking it stride. Every year that him and Brandon Young have seemed to be better, in some areas, and you hope that that Cleveland Melvin's taken some strides defensively, and you got to hope that maybe some of the bigger guys, like a guy like Tommy Hamilton, kind of relieve some of that pressure too, or just not having those consistent front court players have really kind of been unable for Melvin to do some things too, just to not to have some of that presence there. So maybe a guy like Tommy Hamilton and some of the new guys they have coming, they'll take some of that from him too and allow him to play more of a natural, maybe a 3 or 4.
Hey, you were talking about Hamilton being able to step out and hit that jump shot. So McDermott can obviously hit that 3-point jump shot as well. He can play all over the court. He can play defense as well. So Hamilton, as you mentioned, hopefully Hamilton or someone else can step up and guard McDermott too.
Yeah, I think you gotta. That's where the hope is. That these younger guys, they step in. There's guys like Tommy Hamilton, like I said, there was some risk, and he wasn't a slam dunk. He thought he had some potential, but I think the upside for him, it's really high. That ceiling's high, and he's got a lot of skills, and he can put it together. He can be really a big time player for DePaul going the next few years. Let's
hope so. And Mr. Powers, we have to take a quick break here. Thank you very much for joining us, and let's go Blue Demons. Hopefully they get this preseason W, but again, that doesn't mean too much just because it's Lewis.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Powers joining us again, talking Blackhawks and Blue Demons, and again, we appreciate it every time he comes on. We love talking sports, and he loves talking hockey, and he knows the Blackhawks like no other.
Right, and definitely, and it's always nice when you talk Blue Demons basketball with other people around. Obviously, some of the callers can't coming from other schools and stuff, but no, it's always great when he comes on to talk Blackhawks and Blue Demons.
Exactly. Let's take a quick song break here. One of my favorite songs and an up-and-coming song. As I mentioned, I played this last week, Two Door Cinema Club, Changing of the Seasons. Again, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. Your basketball team from Chicago, not the DePaul Blue Demons, not the basketball team from DePaul, but the Chicago Bulls. We'll be talking about them next as they take on the Miami Heat. The central talk of Chicago as Derrick Rose makes his regular season debut at Miami, the defending NBA champions. We'll be talking about next on the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
So it's over. I didn't realize it's so much colder, but it was no surprise. Did you ever get to know me? 'Cause
Radio DePaul is
awesome,
engaging,
ballin', an opportunity for me to voice my opinion.
really cool, really laid back.
a big community of everything.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's college connection.
From cardio kickboxing to spinning, from boot camp to dance, whatever your workout preference, the group fitness programs at The Ray have tons of offerings to get your blood pumping. With more than 65 classes offered weekly, try the dance fitness phenomenon Zumba, or get your abs aching with the ever-popular Crunch. Best of all, every group fitness class is free, so grab your sneakers and visit The Ray today.
This message brought to you by Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection. Keeping it real good. Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
Recent spurt, and now at 44% from the field, 17 for 39. What a move by Rose! Oh! Yes, and it counts over Joel Anthony. Once again, Marv, Reggie getting very physical. I noticed.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection. Yes, I know you're just as excited as I am, and Derrick Rose doing his thing against the Miami Heat 2 years ago in the Eastern Conference Finals. On that same court, you know he's just as excited to get back at it tomorrow night.
Absolutely. I mean, we were complaining that we've been waiting all this time, but think about him. I mean, he's one of the most competitive people on this planet.
Yep.
And for him to sit back and have to see all the nasty things that were said about him, I bet he can't wait to get out on that court and show everybody, prove everybody wrong, prove everybody that the wait was worth it, and that he's back and better than ever.
Exactly. And again, I was talking with someone from ESPN 1000 today, Fred Hubner, and he had some great words in a tweet from a couple weeks ago. I'm going to pull it up for you guys. Let's see here. I'll get it up for you once I find it on my Twitter feed. But he was talking about how Derrick Rose is like a. Oh, here we go. His words: I'm going to have a difficult time with Bulls fans if they want Rose handling. If they want the Rose handling like a channel doll. It's basketball, and he's going to play a lot! ! That's the truth, you know. Thibodeau, as we know, he manages his minutes like it's not a big deal. He's going to throw players out there.
Right.
We saw in the last preseason game, Jimmy Butler got 33 minutes, or D Rose got 33 minutes. Jimmy Butler got 37. The list goes on and on and on with these Bulls players. But D Rose, if he gets hurt, and Bulls fans knock on wood, I already knocked on wood today. If D Rose gets hurt, it has nothing to do with the ACL injury. It happens all the time to players. They get hurt after their injuries, and life moves on. You know, you're going back. You're playing a sport. You're going as hard as you can to will your team on to a victory. Injuries happen.
Right. It's been 18 months since his ACL injury. That is not the issue anymore. He needs to go out and play and play and play and play as much as Thibodeau wants and as much as he wants, because, I mean, as good as this Bulls team did without him last year, you saw that they couldn't. They won game one in Miami, and that was great, and it was hard. But they need D Rose to be D Rose if they have any chance of dethroning Miami and reaching that NBA Finals peak. So absolutely, I think he needs to play. What was he playing before? 35, 38 minutes.
And that's what Thibodeau's going to give him. He's going to give him the stretch. Derrick Rose should not be limited by any stretch.
No.
On it just because of that torn ACL.
Right. And that's not the, if he had come back last year, then okay, yeah, then you do a minutes thing. But no, he's back fully healthy. He took all his time off for a reason so he can come back and not have to sit out.
Exactly. And another key for this Bulls team is right now the injuries. And Tom was mentioning during the break that Joakim Noah will be ready to go tomorrow. I hope the same goes for Kirk Heinrich, because this Bulls team needs those two players. Not only that, they need the rest of this team to stay healthy this season to make that official push for a playoff run, and not only that, a championship run.
Right, yeah. Noah came out last week and said that his groin is fully healthy, but the Bulls are continuing to list him day to day.
That's a Gar Forman move.
Right, so, hopefully he plays tomorrow, because the guy says he's healthy, he's ready to go. But he's just as vital to this Bulls team as D Rose almost is, because he's the cog in their defense that holds everything together, that lets Thibodeau do all this creative stuff on the outside with Butler and Dang, and he really is what makes this defense so great.
Yeah, and again, you look at Luol Deng in the contract year. He said his wrist is fully healthy somehow without having surgery. Maybe he had surgery in Germany or something like that.
Right, blood transfusion or whatever.
Exactly, whatever those players do. But you look at Jimmy Butler having in his second official year getting these big minutes, or in maybe his first official year at the starting two guard getting these big minutes. And it's unbelievable to me because this starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls 1 through 5 might be potentially the best starting five in the NBA.
Yeah, that's
healthy.
When healthy, yeah, because you look at Miami, they have the 3, and then it's a massive drop off at 1 and 5. But here,
it's 1 through 5.
1 through 5, every single guy. You have arguably the best point guard. Okay, maybe top 3 point guard in the NBA. You have an up and coming 2 guard that can guard anybody, can shoot getting better at shooting the ball. You have a proven veteran at the 3, Luol Deng, who's done everything, can do anything. You have Boozer, who's pretty offensively gifted, defensive rebounding, or sometimes there, sometimes not.
We argue about this a lot, but we won't do it today.
Right, and then you have Joakim Noah, arguably one of the 3 best centers in the league. So, like you said, 1 through 5, it's amazing. And not to mention, they got a pretty solid veteran bench, too.
Marcus Teague, a guy who's going to get his minutes this year as the backup point guard.
Right.
Kirk Heinrich, Mike Dunleavy, a veteran.
Taj Gibson, possibly they bring over Mirotic, right? Isn't that?
That's going to be next year, but Nazir Mohammed at the center.
Okay, yeah. So they still got Nazi. We saw, he can come in and do the garbage time that needs to do.
And the push.
Yeah. And Thibodeau knows how to handle this team. There's no doubt about that. The guy's an unbelievable coach. So I think Bulls fans should be very optimistic.
And that's another thing. I used to question Thibodeau's minutes, the handling of the minutes, but at this point, I don't care anymore. He's a coach. He got the extension. Let him do what he wants. He's gotten this team to the Eastern Conference Finals. He's going to handle it the way he wants, no matter what anyone says. You look at Oliver Pennell, for example, comparing sports.
Right.
If you want him to stop the full court press, is that going to stop him from doing that? No. If you want Tom Thibodeau to stop playing Derrick Rose, I don't want to talk about Derrick Rose's minutes anymore. If you want to stop him from playing Luol Deng 39 minutes a game, is that going to stop him from doing that? No. It's just not. It's the way Thibodeau coaches,
right.
And I'm fine with it.
Right, and it's what's got them both this far. So
they got to the semifinals with that kind of a team last year.
Right, and they got to the finals with him doing the exact same thing before with D Rose the year before. So I definitely know they definitely just go ahead. Just Thibodeau's got to do what he's got to do. But optimism should be a big thing for Bulls fans this year. You said you're already thinking NBA Finals appearance.
How could you not? You look at this team right now, like I said, compare it to a lot of other starting fives. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, Heat, other than that, the Pacers have a very good starting 5, but I'll take this Bulls starting 5 over that.
Absolutely.
Obviously, game to game, but in a whole that's the great part about the NBA, and people can name the NBA all they want. And the NBA seems to be becoming more and more of a younger person's sport than an older person's sport. But going to the NBA right now, you need to have that starting 5. You need to have the core around Derrick Rose and the core around one star player, because Derrick Rose did not have that core, a huge core around him like this. The depth that this Bulls team has right now, uncomparable to what they had in 2011. Keith Bogans at the 2,
right.
He couldn't score the basketball. He went up for like 21 points in Game 5 against the Pacers in the clincher, and that was it.
Right, yeah, no, the depth is there, and the veteran leadership is there, the experience, because this is a team that's repeatedly been in tough playoff battles in these past 3 years. So I definitely think you can't compare this 2011 team, this team to the 2011.
And Derrick Rose having that much more motivation, Luol Deng in a contract year.
Right.
This is the year for this Bulls team to win a championship. That's what I can say.
Yeah, I definitely. For my Sixers, not so much. For
your Sixers, not so much. And I wish we had more time to dive into that, but we're going to take a quick ID break, then we'll dive into the You Gotta Be Beeping Me moment of the week.
Sounds good.
We might have the same one, I think, just with the whole Des Bryant stuff yesterday. I'm not trying to give mine away, but with that whole stuff, if you want to think of one during the break, you could do so. But again, quick ID break here, then we'll both say our You Gotta Be Beeping Me moment of the week before it's time to say goodbye. So again, you are listening to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
DePaul.edu and iTunes Radio.
Live, worldwide, 24/7.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's College Connection.
Here's Zobrist. He popped up to Dunn. What job?
Oh, what are you doing? He threw him out of the ball game. You gotta be beeping me. What in the hell are you doing? What are you doing, Wagner? You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. And we actually snuck it away a little bit with that from the You Gotta Be Beeping Me moment of the week, but now we're back at it this week.
Yeah.
And a perfect one from yesterday's football game. Before we dive into that, though, Tom was talking about this before the game. The Detroit Lions at 5-3, and a big reason for that is because of Matt Stafford's call on the goal line yesterday.
Right, yeah. Everyone's probably at this point seen the video or heard about it, his little jumping over the line, getting the touchdown. But what's really interesting up to that is he's telling everybody that he's going to spike the ball, making it very clear, hustling his linemen up to the line. The receivers, if you look at the receivers, they're not going anywhere. It's spike, spike, spike. So you see the Dallas defense, they're there, but in the back of their head they're thinking, oh, it's a spike. So he hikes it real quick, jumps, game over.
That offensive line, Dominique Raiola, we talked about him a couple weeks ago, actually. Remember when we were talking about Garrett Jones, and it was actually Pedro Alvarez who had that home run.
Right.
But Raiola, veteran center, making plays with Matthew Stafford, that combination. Talk about a running back and quarterback combination, but how about a center and a quarterback combination making plays?
Well, that's people. That's underrated. That's one of the most important combinations in that makes the offense go, because you look at Jeff Saturday and Peyton Manning, probably the most successful center quarterback combination there ever has been.
That's true. And now just looking at the quarterback combination in Dallas, maybe Tony Romo wasn't the problem yesterday. It seemed like it's maybe he was a little bit a solid game though for Romo overall, but Dez Bryant and Jason Witten being the veteran tight end, I'm not going to blame him because Bryant was going off, and that's where my "you got to be beeping me" moment of the week has to come in, because Bryant was a mess on the sideline. Whether it was he was going to one of the coaches and he was off on a Witten for at least 3 minutes.
Right.
He went to Miles Austin even. He was twice.
Yeah.
They showed that on SportsCenter.
Yeah, I think Witten had every right to confront Bryant because he was acting like.
What did happen on the field?
I have no idea. I assume Witten confronted him because of his earlier tantrums on the sideline. Romo's in a conference with the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator, and Bryant comes over screaming at him, and you're just like, well, the guy.
Witten's going to defend his quarterback,
right,
especially Witten being the vet.
Absolutely, and everyone understands you're the best player on this team, but that doesn't excuse, just like it doesn't excuse Marshall acting like a diva. Or look at Calvin Johnson. Do you ever hear anything bad about that guy?
That's true.
I mean, he just goes out there, plays his butt off, puts off unbelievable numbers,
even when he doesn't get as many yards.
Right, because he's happy if the team's doing well. These other receivers that are such divas, and it makes me so angry.
What happened at Oklahoma State? Remember that whole scandal?
Yeah, he had lunch with Deion Sanders, and you're not allowed to do that.
He likes to do this kind of stuff, and obviously that's a little bit of a smaller issue, but he likes to put himself out there in the media.
But it is. No, it shows that, and his mom and him got into a thing.
He abused his mom?
Yeah, he hit his mom or something. I don't know. Just really, you don't get good vibes from this guy. He's a heck of a football player, but it's disappointing that he has to act like that.
You know what it is, and unfortunately for Dez Bryant and the Dallas Cowboys, so much talent, yet they're in first place, and the Eagles are a game back somehow. We were talking about this too.
The Giants are 2 back.
Giants are 2 back at 2-6, and the Redskins are 2 back too at 2-6.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Right. This is really anybody's division right now. And it's like it's the same Cowboys story over and over and over. They always have a super, super talented team.
What if sorry to cut you off. What if an NFC East team made the playoffs at 6-10 or 7-9? 7-9, I remember the Seahawks did that.
Yeah.
What if it happened to be at 6-10?
That would be bad. The Cowboys will win more than
you
6
hope so.
games.
I'm just trying to create a little bit of a
right. Yeah. No. 7-9 is completely plausible with the way this division is played. But
that's awful.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad for the division. But you look at the way the NFC West has bounced back since then. They have 2 of the best teams in the NFC
and some solid backups too. The Cardinals thrashing the Falcons.
Right, and the Rams had a pesky team last year. This year, obviously, injuries have derailed that. But
yeah, no. How about the Cardinals, man? 500 right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bruce Arians is a heck of a coach.
Yeah, and you look at this Cardinals team right now, and you look at the wild card race in the NFC. The Cardinals are they're 0-3 in the division. Obviously, that's not going to cut it, but they're a half game out of the wild card, behind the Carolina Panthers, or behind they're a game and a half.
Okay,
they're full game actually. Sorry, they're 1 game back of the Detroit Lions of the wild card spot. That's incredible to me.
Yeah, no, I know, and you think about that, and they're talking about trading Fitzgerald. Did you see that? I think that's a little interesting because he's really Michael Floyd's getting better, but he's really your only offensive target right now.
Exactly, and you're trying to disperse your Cardinals fans around.
Right, especially if you're a game out of play of contention right now, halfway through the season.
I was completely shocked to see that the Cardinals were a game back.
Yeah, that is because they've looked terrible this year, but then obviously beating a Falcons team that's obviously ravaged by injuries.
Yeah, looking at Carson Palmer's stats before we have to head out here, he has 10 touchdowns on the season. That's respectable. I'm trying to find the interceptions here really quick. On the season,
he's got 14
interceptions.
Yeah, okay,
and they're 500.
Yeah,
it's not bad. He's playing through it.
Right, they got a great defense. Patrick Peterson, tremendous player.
And it seems like Rashard Mendenhall racks up like 20 carries and 30 yards a game.
Classic Rashard Mendenhall.
Classic Rashard Mendenhall, but gets that 2 touchdowns. And
right, yeah.
He finds a way to sneak into the end zone. But we're going to have to head out here. Again, thank you very much to your buddy Max. And again, if anyone wants to call in really quick, wish Tom happy birthday. I'm just kidding about that. But again, happy birthday to Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, respectfully, have a good birthday, Tom.
Thank you.
And yes, and everyone else who joined in and listened to the show, we appreciate it. Scott Powers from ESPN 1000.
Yeah.
We enjoyed him calling in, talking Blackhawks and DePaul Blue Demons, and we hope he calls in very soon.
Definitely. It was a great show. Good birthday present.
Yes, sir.
No, but yeah, thanks to Max calling in. Thanks to Scott Powers for coming on.
All right, and again, everyone else who listened and had a chance to check out the show today, we appreciate it. If you didn't get a chance to check out the full show, you want to do so, go to the website, www.thelineupradiodepaul.weebly.com. You could check us out and the podcast as well. Again, thank you for listening to The Lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
You are connected to Radio DePaul.
No intentions to keep this from getting out of hand. So persistent, cause we know that we are so content to sleep where we land.